had this conversation with this teenager, and he said, "But I don't believe in God." This was after a long conversation about mitzvahs and do you have to do them, not do them. All of a sudden he says, "Yeah, but I don't believe in God." I said, "Well, what have we been talking about here all this time?" I said, "You don't believe in God?" He says, "No." I said, "Are you sure?" He says, "Yeah, I'm sure." "I don't believe in God." I said, "I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. What is it you don't believe in?" He says, "God." I said, "What's that?" He says, "I don't know." "You don't know what God is?" He says, "No." I said, "And yet you don't believe in him?" He says, "That's right." I said, "That doesn't make any sense." He says, "Why not?" "I don't know what he is, so I don't believe in him." Does that make sense? Yeah, but so ask the average person who says he doesn't believe in God. Ask him what God is. He doesn't know. And it's because he doesn't know that he doesn't believe in him. When they say God doesn't exist, what doesn't exist? This unknowable thing. When people say they don't believe in God, they mean, I don't know what you're talking about. When you say God, I don't know what you mean. And they're calling that not believing. Which means that believing in God means to believe in God and not know what you're talking about. Of course I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. So they're confusing belief with knowledge. It doesn't make any sense. How can you not believe in something you don't even know what you're talking about?
I don't know. I mean, there can be a disagreement as to whether a certain atomic entity exists, and you could say, I don't believe in that entity. And
if you know what that entity is, you can say you do believe it, you don't believe it. If you don't know what it is, what do you mean you don't believe it? We haven't even defined what it is yet. You're saying I don't believe it? It's like this guy came to a rabbi once, and the rabbi said, "Come, you'll come to us for Shabbos." He says, "No, I don't keep Shabbos. I'm an Apikoros. I'm an atheist." He says, "Oh, you're an atheist." He says, "Did you ever learn Kabbalah?" He says, "No, I don't learn that stuff. I'm an atheist." He says, "Did you ever learn the Gemara?" He says, "No." He says, "Did you ever learn Mishnah?" He says, "No." "Did you ever learn the Chumash?" He says, "No." He says, "Did you ever learn the Code of Jewish Law?" He says, "No. I'm an Apikoros." So the rabbi said, "Sorry, if you haven't learned Chumash, and you haven't learned Shulchan Aruch, and you haven't learned Gemara, you haven't learned Mishnah, you haven't learned Kabbalah, you're not an Apikoros, you're an ignoramus." To be an Apikoros, you have to learn all of the above and then decide that you don't believe it. That's an Apikoros, you know? But to say, "Oh, I don't know anything about that. I'm an atheist." If you don't know anything about it, you're not an atheist. You just don't know. So how many people really know and are atheists?
a professor at my university like that.
You have to work hard. You have to get a degree in Apikoros. You know, you can't just you have every shmendrik in town be an Apikoros. You got to really work at it. But what does it mean to learn and know and not and be an Apikoros? What it means very simply is this: I know you, I see what you are, and you're very good and you're very nice. I don't want a relationship with you. The Apikoros is not saying, I've read the Torah and I found it untrue.
Well, what do you call a kind of person who does that?
The person who says, I've studied Torah, I understand what God is all about.
They might not believe in God. They just say, I've read the Torah and I think it's not valid.
But before they can say that they don't believe in God, they have to say, I know what you mean by God.
Okay, yes, I know what the Torah means.
Right. So I read it, I understand what the Torah means by God, but I don't believe in him. You know what that means? It means I don't care. I am not going to commit my life to him. My point is this. Belief in God means a relationship with God. What does belief mean? It doesn't mean I think there is a God, I think there's not a God. That's not belief. It's an opinion. Belief in God means I not only know that there is a God, but I'm in a relationship with him. That's what belief means. The person who says I don't believe there is a God is talking nonsense, because there's no way to know whether there is or there isn't a God. And the people who say, well, you can't prove God exists. True, you can't prove that he doesn't exist. So to say I don't think he exists is a meaningless statement. It's like saying, do you believe in marriage or do you not believe in marriage? I don't know. Believe in marriage, don't believe in marriage. I like you, I want to marry you. Belief in God means
Know that this person exists before you can want to marry them.
right. So your grandfather tells you that God came and said such and such, and you say, I want to get involved with that. Which means much more than, yes, I believe that it really happened. It's saying, I want to be part of that. The person who says, I don't believe, is saying, I don't want to be part of that. Because whether or not God exists, we'll never really know. The only thing that we can really decide or choose for ourselves is whether we want to be involved or we don't want to be involved.
How can you be involved in something that you're not sure, or
You don't.
somebody who's
You don't have to.
the convinced side?
You don't have to be sure. You don't have to be.
Just precursor to a relationship is knowing that the other being in the relationship.
So again, we're back to what we're saying. We're back to what we're saying before. The person is saying that unless I can understand everything about God, I don't want to be involved. That's like saying, unless I understand everything about my wife, I don't want to be in this marriage.
Unless that God exists, I don't want to be involved in it. Unless I know.
No. If there's a question that can't be answered, right? We're standing at the street corner. Some guy comes and says, I spoke to God and he wants you to do such and such. Now, I don't know for sure. You don't know for sure. I say, yeah, I'll go for it. You say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. How do I know you're telling me the truth? I don't want to have any part of it. What's the difference between us?
Between you saying I'll go for it and me saying I don't. Well, but there's a third person who says, prove to me that that God really spoke to you.
And until you do, in other words, we both don't have proof that God exists. And we both don't have proof that God really said that. But I like the idea. I want to get involved. So I choose to go with it. Do I now know for sure God exists? No. But I want to be part of this. And you're saying, I don't want any part of this until you prove to me that there's a God. So what I'm saying is that even if afterwards I do prove to the atheist that there's a God, he still won't want any part of it because he just doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah, but that already is a step too far for me, because you don't know that. You first prove it and then see what happens.
Let's use the analogy of a marriage. If a man says, I cannot marry a woman I don't completely understand, what is he really saying? He's really saying, I ain't getting married. Because there will never be a woman he will completely understand.
What if he's saying I don't know?
So it's really a fear of a relationship, not.
The analogy is I can't marry. If you want to be analogous to that person in between the other two people, you have to say, I can't marry you. I won't marry a woman who doesn't exist. And that seems like a very
whose existence can be proved. You can't say he doesn't exist. You just don't know.
Okay, so I won't marry a woman whose existence can't be proved. So that doesn't seem like very.
By saying, I will not believe, if you say, I won't believe in a God whose existence can't be proved, that means you ain't going to believe in a God. In other words, you're making impossible conditions, which means you just don't want the relationship.
Doesn't necessarily mean that. Maybe means that you have impossible conditions. And that may be true.
So
But it doesn't.
that's the analogy.
But the analogy is not that you don't care or something like that. That's just going to be fine.
The analogy is that if you make a condition that is impossible to find in a woman, it means you don't want to get married. Doesn't it?
What's wrong with the self-destructive? They don't really know what to do.
You mean it's unconscious. But that's the difference between a person who believes and a person who doesn't believe. Their difference is not in their opinion, because they both really don't know. The difference is when you hear something and you like it, you go for it. Do you know for sure? Can you have proof? Who cares? I like it. I want it. I go for it. So if you want to have a relationship, then you go for a relationship. Do you know the person you're marrying? No.
What are you supposed to like? I don't understand.
In a relationship or in God? In a relationship, you like being part of someone else's life. You don't want to be alone. You say, but you don't know this person. So what? I don't want to be alone. I want to be part of. And with God, when a person comes along and says, God created the world for a reason and needs you to do such and such, I want part of that. Because I like the idea that I exist for a reason.
Even though you may be wrong.
Even though I may be wrong.
So maybe it comes down to psychological need for having purpose.
It comes down to whether I want this relationship or not. And I want the relationship because it gives my life meaning.